continually God's Spirit is present. He breathes on them, the Spirit, and says, be bold. And what you do on behalf of God, God will do. If you forgive, I'll forgive. In the Luke story, we have a little bit longer narration of that. Now remember, Luke wasn't there. He was a Greek physician that picked up on the missionary journey with Paul when he was in the Aegean Sea. But Luke also got involved with Peter and heard the first-hand stories as Peter, as that's what he writes in the gospel. So Luke tells it in that not only did he breathe on him, but he tells us that he was there and told them what they were to do. That they were supposed to stay and wait just a little bit longer. They were to be ready to receive what God had planned. That the Spirit was going to give them the strength and the guidance. So guess what? Now they know what they're doing, don't they? No longer are they hiding behind doors. They've been empowered. Their goal is to be a witness. They are to wait until God's timing happens. And they'll know it. And we'll find out about it in a few weeks. To be God's witnesses. Now, what is it that they're going to witness about? What is the purpose and what is it that Jesus wants them to tell them? That God has redeemed. That the promise, he said, the promise that was given to Abraham, to Moses, through all of history, has happened. It's fulfilled. God has done what's important. Go out and tell them that God is God. God did fulfill his promise. You can trust him, and God loves you and desires to be in relationship with you. That was their sole purpose. How they do it is exactly what you see in the early church in Acts and what you heard us be challenged to do as a church, which we're doing in different ways, is not only do you say it in your words, but you do it in your actions. Act like you are redeemed. That God is God and he loves you. And if he loves you, what are you supposed to do? Love one another, right? Meet people where they're at, doing whatever it is that you can do. So that means if you have 36 people come to soup supper, you pull out everything you got in the pantry and you keep feeding, right? We are to be what God asks us to be, which is deal for the day. He didn't tell the disciples, here's your long plan, and this is how you're going to do it. He just said, be patient, wait, and the Spirit will lead you. And he will help you. And the Spirit does, as you read in Acts there. We are to be his witnesses. We'll find out there's a few more chosen periods before we get to Pentecost where Jesus reveals himself. Last week we read from Paul that there were over 500 people besides the disciples that got to see Jesus alive. If more than 2 people see an event and it's the same, what do you believe? Probably happened. If 500 people at different times over a period of 40 to 50 days see it, is it believable? You might say Mary Magdalene's was a vision of hope. You could kind of say, yeah. How many times have you heard people say, my husband has gone away, or somebody, or a child's come back and spoke to me? And you in your mind might think, well, maybe, but maybe it's just they want it so bad. But when you have continual witnesses to the event, or continual sightings, what do we start doing? We start believing, don't we? That's how you can be his witness. It's one thing for Bruce to go work at Habitat. Okay, that's a great witness, and there's a lot of people there. But when there are 15 from our church that go work at Habitat at different times, what does that say about the Merrimac United Methodist Church? It cares about people who want housing, right? Be one thing if Don was saying, I want to do a soup supper, and I'm going to fix soup every Sunday. Then what would people think if Don was the only one making the soup? well, Don's a good guy and he cares. But nobody'd think it was a church thing, would they? But when we have 30 different people helping out with soup suppers, do you believe it's the church? It's a ministry of the church, right? Together we are God's witness to this church of how God is living and working in our lives. When we work together in community for a common purpose, which is to be God's hands and feet, we become his witnesses to the reality of who